Hi everyone, I'm Josh Knight the First, and welcome to Ex-Aid Replay. I'm going to be using this as a forum to go ahead and talk about the new Kamen Rider series, Kamen Rider Ex-Aid. That just premiered this weekend over in Japan. Those of us over here in the States have yet to get subs. Thankfully, there are two different teams working on that. But until that comes out, I'm going to fill in the gap and talk to you guys about what was there in the Raw. So let's go ahead and get right to it. So this is a new series, having replaced Kamen Rider Ghost, which ended last week. We did get a cameo from Ex-Aid himself in that episode, and there we got a little bit of a taste of what we were going to expect this week in the show. There's a different feel to the show. It's a lot more energetic, a lot more fast-paced, and that's given the aesthetic of the series, which is based in a lot of different things. First and foremost, they're blending two different motifs. There's the doctor motif, which seems to be the basis of the drama there in the show, and then the gamer motif, which seems to be a lot more prevalent in the action, in the advertising, and in the series thereabouts. You can very much tell, or at least in my opinion, you can see a lot of 90s influence here with all of the bright lime greens, neon pinks, wacky colors that they're using there in the effects, and I think that's something that they want to tie back to. Of course, nostalgia is a very big, very marketable thing, so I think it's a smart move on Toei's part that they decided to do that. But let's go ahead and talk about the show as it is. Okay, so from the beginning, we see our hero, Emu Hojo. He's providing some narration. He's talking about a hero who doesn't give up despite any sort of adversity, and of course this is said over some flashbacks of him as a child. Now, Emu apparently was sick as a child. They haven't fully given credence to exactly what happened, but from what we can tell, he was sick, he was taken to the hospital, he was very much in a bad way, and a doctor who was attending to him at the time gave him hope and told him, hey, you can do this, you can fight on. The interesting thing about that is shown there in the flashback is that we see a basis for Emu's love of gaming, and that is shown through the doctor, the attending physician there, handing him a handheld device. Now, some of you might be wondering, what was that device? I'll tell you. For those of you familiar with it, it was a Wonder Swan, which I happen to have a copy of here, thanks to Kaylin, thank you. A Wonder Swan, of course, came out in 1999, so given that this is a flashback from 16 years in the past that puts it at 2000, this absolutely would have been out. Not this one, this is a Wonder Swan Color. The kind of games he would have been playing would have been something like this, you know, a little bit of a Super Robot Tyson there. So this absolutely makes sense, also because the manufacturer, I don't know if you guys can see that there, Bandai. Bandai, of course, teaming up with Namco right now to make most of the Kamen Rider games, so that absolutely makes sense. That solidifies that this is an actual system that exists in that world. But of course, we're brought into the current day. Emu is now an attending physician there at the hospital in the pediatrics ward. He seems to be a bit bumbly, but when he's playing a video game, he's very focused. Now, he's not playing this, he's playing some sort of off-peripheral that Toei seems to have invented for the show. In the context of the show, he is unaware of the actual problem, which are the bug stars. Now, the bug stars are these, it's hard to describe, they're a computer virus that is somehow legitimized and infects other people. Once they are infected, they shift into a different form, they rampage for a bit, and it's up to the Kamen Riders of the series to save them. Using the gamer driver, they are the only ones that are able to operate on them. Now, it's interesting to note that there on a sheet of paper there, the scene on screen, it's romanized as Bugster, but as far as the pronunciation Bugusta, I guess it's kind of interchangeable however you want to pronounce that. Now, that's about as much doctoring as we get in this episode. We see Emu doing his rounds at the beginning of the episode, but otherwise, of course, we try to get right into the action. And talking about the action, I want to compliment the Japan Action team there for doing a lot better work with the wire work here than they did in Ghost, and I'll bring that up for a reason, because with Ghost, you can tell they tried to make use of the wire work by making him swing back and forth, kind of like a high school rendition of Peter Pan, and it just kind of feels cheap, whereas here, the idea is that Ex-Aid, really Ex-Aid Level 2, or really even Level 1, is very much based off a platforming type of game. You think back to the 90s, the biggest games there, Mario, Sonic, you absolutely see that here. He's jumping around, beating up blocks to get power-ups, he's rolling on the lawn, trying to get away from the monster, and then with the jumping effects therein, it's supposed to be exaggerated, and I don't think it's a good idea to expect much more than that. They're going for exactly what they told you they were going to do when they said they were going to make this video game theme, so good on them for doing that. Now, going into the fight, we see that because Emu is a gamer, he's used to this kind of thing in his off time when he's not doing his rounds as a doctor, he's a lot more confident from the get-go than most other Kamen Riders are. And I think it's important to have that, at least physically, that the writer seems capable, but the other thing that's important about it is that his motivation as a writer is well established, and I think they've done that. Showing that when he was saved as a small child with that doctor's help, it gave him the sense of duty that if somebody was there to do that for me, I should do that for others. You know, he's there saying, I will change this young boy, Sota's fate. I'm going to do that. I want to do that for him. I don't want him to succumb to this bug star virus. And it's important to set that up from the get-go. Now, the thing I'm worried about is that as the series progresses, that they'll shy away from that, but I have hope here. It's important that the writers remain strong in the eyes of the children over there. You know, this is a series that's been beloved for 45 years. People have been watching this for so long, generations getting into it, they grew up on it, show their kids hopefully will show their kids. And so these characters, they stick out in people's minds, and when they have the opportunity to share this time with them, you know, 30 minutes a week, every week, it's important that they get in that quality time and that they show people the best parts that they want to emulate. I know they were trying to go for that in Ghost, but I wonder how much it's really going to last. And of course, that's personal opinion, but here with Ex-Aid, I think what they're trying to do is get that, and again, this is personal opinion, get that across while at the same time giving them the visuals that will help cement that in the head. And going along with the visuals, it's interesting to see how they're doing these effects here, you know, that they're breaking blocks and they've got all these different power-ups, and we'll see different kinds of power-ups as the series progresses. And speaking of progression, we can go ahead and talk about the little Easter eggs that we see there. As far as the progression, when Ex-Aid transforms, we see that he has this, basically a character select screen, which makes perfect sense, game motif. And we see 9 different slots there. Now, 4 of them are visible, and that would be Ex-Aid, Snipe, Brave, and Laser. Ex-Aid and Genom will probably use the same slots since they're basically the same character type. The other 9 can be looked at in one of 2 ways. Either one, these are the open slots for the other types of games, which they demonstrate at the end, Goshouts 1 through 10, all the way up to Drago, Night Hunter Z, or these could potentially be other writers. A lot of the actors for this series said in the press conference that they were looking up to Ryuki as kids. That was the Kamen Rider show they got in on. There's been a lot of rumors that this series will have several writers, you know, kind of like Ryuki was. That was the first series to have a ton of writers, you know, 12 there in the series, 13 altogether. If that's the case, then it makes sense. There are many different types of games. They're going to showcase at least 10 that we know of from this first quarter catalog that's been leaked out, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. Of course, that remains to be seen because we've got to get all these out, the ones that we know about, by the holidays. People are absolutely going to be buying these toys. I know the Ex-Aid Gamer Driver is going for an exorbitant amount of money right now. I'm still looking forward to getting mine, but you know, it's there for a reason. They've designed it in a way that kids are going to absolutely want to play with this. I want to play with this, and I'm friggin' in my 30s right now, so that good job on them for designing it the way they did. Now, one of the drawbacks that I see as far as, you know, this boisterous, very loud, in-your-face design that they've got going can be seen in the character Popey Peepo Papo. I really had to focus on saying that. She's going to be the kind of liaison between Emu, Ex-Aid, and the story itself, explaining, okay, these are the kinds of games you're going to have to deal with. She seems to be very much based off, you know, the idol type that's very popular over there in Japan right now. Some people are going to love her, some people are going to hate her, some people absolutely want to hit her over the head with a baseball bat. I'm not certain where I'm at yet, but I'm leaning towards the baseball bat, but hopefully they'll do something with that. There'll be a reason for that. Maybe something tragic thrown in. Probably not. It's probably just what it is. One of the important things that I liked here in the first episode were 2 notable throwbacks. Now, one of them we knew about going into this, which was seen in the promos for the Ganba Rising video game, arcade game that's out there in Japan right now, is that when Ex-Aid transforms, goes over to his level 2 form, he runs through a portal that takes him into that form, which for a lot of people they see as a throwback to Kamen Rider Blade, the same way he used to transform, you know, running through a portal and then boom, he's a rider. The other thing that maybe older fans would catch is that when he transforms from level 1 to level 2, the motion and the phrase that he says, he transforms into level 2 by saying Cho Henshin, and there's outward movement and a cross, and then, you know, pulling the lever. That there seems like a throwback to Kamen Rider X, who famously had 2 different transformation poses. The initial one, you know, set up, you know, that was shown in the Heisei vs. Showa Rider movie a couple years back with Gaim. But later on after that, he had a second transformation where he would do a similar movement across the arm. And it makes sense with Ex-Aid having a basis in a game named Mighty Action X that the 2 are correlated. And I think that's very important that even in the series, which seems seems so incredibly modern, there's a throwback to the old school. Good on them, good on anybody who caught that. So where do we go with the rest of the series? Of course, this is episode 1. We've got 40 plus episodes to get through. Everybody's looking forward to the next episode. I'm wondering how much they're still going to keep to the gaming motif and how deep they're going to get into it, because obviously they're giving us the basic stuff. Oh, these are platformers. Next week we're going to get the writer who's based in RPGs, and then after that the writer who's based in shooting games. Part of it is, since they, the actors at least brought up the Ryuki factor, if you're basing this in video games, you've got two basic ways of looking at it. It's PvP, PvE, player versus player, player versus environment. Really, player versus environment, that would be the writer versus anything that the Bugstars throw at him. Player versus player, that's him versus any of the other writers there in the series. And that seems like, based there in the last 5 minutes of the episode, really even 2 minutes, that's going to be a problem, that the other writers don't like Emu for whatever reason. There's only room for one writer in this town, and then they're going to have at it. And that's not saying that that's been overdone the last couple of years, because it has. But that's probably going to be something we're given. But I do want to see how much they play up the gaming aspect. I wonder if at some point they're just going to leave the hospital altogether, because really the gaming portion, I think, is what's going to get people's attention. I know it got my attention, certainly, given, certain qualifying things in recent years, but that remains to be seen. Of course, those are my thoughts. You guys tell me your thoughts. You guys can comment on this, let me know, have a conversation with me. You can also hit me up on Twitter. I'm at JoshKnight1st. This has been my thoughts for Kamen Rider Ex-Aid Episode 1. I'm a Kamen Rider. Hopefully I'll be back next week talking about Episode 2. So for now, this has been Ex-Aid Replay with JoshKnight1st. I will see you guys again next week.